Now, this is the midweek mother of all talk shows. We broadcast now on Sunday evenings at 7 p.m. UK time. Remember, the clocks will soon change in the United States. So we'll be on an hour earlier, at least for a little while. 7 p.m. on Sundays and 9 p.m. UK time on Wednesdays. The Wednesday show, at least the first hour of it, is brought to you courtesy of our sponsor, my good friend Ravi, and his ravishing company. The more I dive deep into it, the more impressed I am. His company is called 220KM, 220KM, and you can check out their website. 220KM develops the most unique and nutrient-rich ingredients and cosmetics in the whole world, whilst regenerating native ecosystems and healing the earth for future generations. These are nature's ingredients, simplified. Their secret is in the unique processing techniques used for nutrient retention through freeze drying and stone grinding, resulting in zero biomass waste. All products, including their cosmetic face and hair mask powders, which I'm wearing right now, including their cosmetic face and hair mask powders, are all natural and food grade, making them as safe for your body as the ingredients in their original form. Get creative in the kitchen with their variety of savory or sweet ingredients, guaranteed to become a new staple in your pantry or kitchen, as we call it at home. Or treat yourself to their face and hair mask powders. I promise you, you'll thank me for that tip. Either way, these impactful ingredients have been developed to inspire change. Visit 220kminc.com to check out all their products. Ingredients, that's the food ingredients, are now available in Amazon Canada and will be available shortly in the US and UK marketplaces. I promise you, although I had to read that out, I meant every word of it, as I know I will next week when we're joined by a second sponsor for the second hour of the midweek MOATS. Now, so much to talk about this evening. Elon Musk's takeover of Twitter cannot be underestimated in its importance. The company is currently owned by a group of oligarchs, the most prominent of whom is a member of the Saudi royal family. So for any of you poised over the typewriter right now to denounce Musk as an oligarch, as a mogul, the company's already owned by moguls. The question is, would you rather it was owned by the mogul Elon Musk or the mogul member of the Saudi royal family? I know which I prefer. If he lives up to his repeated promises of opening up the company, of making it transparent, of rooting out the robots that proliferate in enormous numbers, fake news machines that are pumping out narratives which are designed to mislead the public into thinking that public opinion is one thing when it may very well be quite another. The use of algorithmic suppression. For example, my 440,000 followers on Twitter, only 84% of them, according to my legal team, actually are excluded, meaning that 16% of you are still seeing my output on Twitter. Hooray, yep. 16% of my 440,000 followers on Twitter ever see a single tweet from me. And the reason for that algorithmic suppression, or the proximate reason, is that Twitter falsely labeled me as a Russian state media affiliate, which I never was and am not now. And I have taken a legal action in the High Court in Dublin, where the Twitter company is headquartered, and I demand that the terms of the settlement are met under the new ownership of Elon Musk. And I feel somehow a little bit confident that they will be, because it would be a signal to the man-bunned, man-bag-carrying, skinny-jeaned and sneaker-wearing executives of Twitter that the company is under new management, and that people with views like mine will be able to compete in the marketplace of ideas on a fair basis. You might like what I say, you might hate it, but you at least have the right to hear it, and I have the right to be heard. The question we're posing in our poll tonight is whether Prince Andrew, he of the Ghislaine Maxwell affair, he of the Jeffrey Epstein affair, should be allowed to stand in for King Charles III. Not on the chopping block like King Charles I, but at state engagements. Who would want Prince Andrew closing in on their daughters or on the ribbons that they are designed to cut in the name of King Charles? No one in their right mind, surely. Prince Harry might be a different kind of cove. At least he doesn't prey on very young girls who are there to please the billionaire Jeffrey Epstein. But he's pretty unpopular in Britain. Picking him to stand in for King Charles might well hasten the end of the monarchy. That's why I'm voting yes in this poll, because I want to see the end of the monarchy. So bring it on, bring Andrew and Harry, send them both to the same functions, cutting the same ribbons, the faster to lead to the end of the Ruritarian fantasy that an hereditary monarch should be the head of state in Britain. Mind you, democracy is so overrated. We've got Joe Biden and now Rashid Sunak. For those who don't know the inside on that latter point, Joe Biden, in public, in front of a camera, greeted the news of Britain's first Prime Minister of colour, first Indian ethnic Prime Minister, first Hindu Prime Minister, by calling him a Muslim. Rashid Sunak is what Joe Biden thought was the name of Britain's Prime Minister. Now that tells you a number of things. First of all, the advancing senility of the US president is vaulting and has as yet no bounds. Secondly, Britain is so important to the White House that Joe Biden had plainly never heard of the man who had just become the Prime Minister of Britain. I suppose we should be grateful that he didn't describe him as that guy down under, as he did the Australian Prime Minister when greeting the launch of the AUKUS, the Australian, UK, US naval coalition designed to confront China in the Indo-Pacific. But he might as well have done. So much for the special relationship. But it's only 2 weeks until Joe Biden's date with destiny. Joe Biden, in 2 weeks, faces the voters of the United States in the midterm elections. My guest tonight, Garland Nixon, a few weeks ago, said that this would be a wipeout of the Democratic Party of biblical proportions. And the opinion polls are catching up with Garland Nixon's prediction. The opinion polls are utterly, devastatingly bad for the Democrats, and it couldn't happen to a nicer group of people. The truth is that in 2 weeks' time, the lame duck presidency of Joe Biden will be a dead duck. The Democrats will hold the White House but lose the Senate and the House of Representatives. Impeachment proceedings against President Biden to force him from office will be launched and may very well be passed. Congressional investigations of the Hunter Biden laptop will begin. Congressional investigations of Biden's political use or misuse, abuse of the Federal Bureau of Investigation and of the CIA will immediately be launched. The deep state in the United States will begin to quiver and its knees to knock, because once that seam begins to be mined, the entire Russiagate hoax launched by the deep state in conjunction with Hillary Clinton. Happy birthday, Hillary, 75 today. Bill says he's the luckiest man alive. That's what he told Ms Lewinsky back in the day. So hey, he's some guy, is Bill. But anyway, Hillary Clinton, the Democratic Party, the deep state in the US, launched the entirely fake Russiagate hoax based on Christopher Steele's bogus disinformation paid for by the Democratic Party, paralyzed the American polity throughout the entire first half of Donald Trump's first presidential term. I say first, I firmly believe that there will be a second. So big events will be underway in the United States just 2 weeks from now. We're looking at the possibility of doing a special show on the US midterms. Maybe we'll do it on a Wednesday or a Sunday, or maybe we'll pick another night and do it. We're investigating the possibility of that. With my guest, Garland Nixon, I reckon we could bring you some analysis that you will not find elsewhere, certainly not on the mainstream media. And turning my attention now to the war. The war goes on, but the tables have turned. I had a long conversation today with a former colonel, a retired colonel from the British Armed Forces, a man of military substance who knows what he's talking about. His prediction for the course of the war matches almost entirely the predictions of Scott Ritter, the former US Marine intelligence officer, and Gonzalo Lira, who between them on our clips over the last 3 weeks have racked up hundreds of thousands of views. If you haven't watched them, watch them now. I'm trying to persuade the colonel to join us on a rotating basis with the other two for a kind of war log where we compare and contrast the analysis of all three. But anyway, the colonel, former British Army colonel that I spoke to at length this afternoon, was very clear. As the real Russian army arrives on the field, as opposed to the ragtag and bobtail concoction of militia and gendarme and armed police that the Russians had fielded hitherto, the course of the war will be like the course of a knife through butter. His words, not mine. And so the West, NATO, and Zelensky are shortly to have very many reasons for regretting that they did not reach a political settlement, either back in April when Zelensky first indicated in Turkey that he was ready to talk Turkey with the Russian President Putin, until Boris Johnson, about whom more in a minute, scuppered the whole deal. And they're going to, and all of us are now, ruining the day that France and Germany, as the guarantor powers of the Security Council of the United Nations, did not implement the Minsk II agreements, which would have obviated the need for this war altogether. It's vital that you know that. You only know it if you know it because you are watching alternatives like MOATS to the mainstream media, which never mentions Minsk, never mentions Minsk II, never mentions that Zelensky signed up for a peace deal and didn't implement it, that France and Germany guaranteed that he would but didn't force him to deliver. And if that had been done, hundreds of thousands of Ukrainian servicemen would still be alive today, instead of their bones now being in the muddy, soon to be frozen earth of the steppes of the Ukraine. Thousands of Russian bodies too would still be on this side of the daisies rather than pushing them up. General Winter arrives on the battlefield very soon, in the next month or so. The war will go on until the spring, my friend the colonel tells me. But by the spring, the Russians, if no negotiated settlement is reached, will be at the gates of Kiev, and this time no more Mr. Nice Guy. So it's important to realize, as Gonzalo Lira pointed out in the clip with me, to which I referred earlier, that you are all being fed a lie, that somehow Ukraine are winning, never mind can win, this conflict with the nuclear-armed superpower. But there is, of course, one option left, and it's an option beginning to preoccupy some important political and military brains. And that option is a dirty nuclear bomb exploded by the Kiev regime, designed to force a nuclear response from Russia and the entry of NATO into what might become an intercontinental thermonuclear war, which would mean the end of life on Earth. Just think about that. And while you're at it, think about this. FIFA is currently under serious pressure to remove Iran's place in the World Cup Qatar, which starts 25 days from now, and give that place to Ukraine. You think I'm making that up? Wait till you hear my next guest, Professor Marandi, the Professor of American Studies at the University of Tehran, right after this short break.